What's very disconcerting to me is when we seem to be getting mixed signals from cabinet members in the Trump administration on border enforcement. Behind closed doors, according to reports today, the Secretary of DHS is saying one thing, and then in front of the cameras, he's saying another. Now, let me read you something from the CNN report about this recent meeting that the Secretary of Homeland Security, John Kelly, had with Senate Democrats, where he said he does not intend to separate mothers and children at the border, apparently walking back an earlier statement that he had made that such a policy could deter people from entering the country illegally. Kelly met with Senate Democrats yesterday for more than an hour to discuss the administration's immigration policy, a meeting that some members left in frustration, but many others called positive. Kelly also said he intends to hold a conference this spring on improving conditions in Central America and discuss the status of deferred action recipients in the wide-ranging meeting. Those are the dreamers. Well, so which is it? Are we enforcing the border, the laws at the border? Or is our primary mission going to be to keep families together? In other words, if a father has made his way to the United States illegally and is living in, I don't know, let's say Arlington, Virginia, and a 15-year-old comes across the border, is it our duty as American citizens, the American government, to unify them in the United States? Is that our duty? Or is it our duty, and frankly our solemn obligation to the American people, to enforce the rule of law as it's written in order to deter future crossings? Because when you tell people our goal is to keep families together, what the immediate conclusion will be is keep them together here, not keep them together in Guatemala or El Salvador or Honduras or Mexico or any of the places where people are coming here illegally. And from what I could gather during this campaign, the reason people really appreciated, I think, Donald Trump's courage on this matter is because he was willing to say and pledge to do what others were afraid to say and would certainly not do. So you have the DHS secretary who goes on television and, well, I'll let you be the judge. Let's listen.
If you get some young kids who are coming in, managed to sneak into the United States with their parents, our Department of Homeland Security personnel going to separate the children from their moms and dads?
We have tremendous experience in dealing with unaccompanied minors. Yes, I am considering, in order to deter more movement along this terribly dangerous network, I am considering exactly that. They will be well cared for as we deal with their parents.
But you understand how that looks to the average person who is,
It's more important to me, Wolf, to try to keep people off of this awful network.
Well, keeping them off of the awful network means telling them if they come here, they're not going to stay here. The reason attempted border crossings have decreased, according to the Border Patrol, is because the word is out. You come, you're not going to be able to stay. If there appears to be any wiggle room on that, and that we're going to go back to the old way of doing things, if there's any sense of that, what do you think is going to happen? The surge will come again. The crossings will resume. And it was up to us, I think it's up to all of us. And remember what Steve Bannon said, hold us accountable. You bet. You bet we're going to hold you accountable. That means you must do what you said you were going to do. The rule of law applies to everyone. And if we learn that someone who's crossing the border has family members illegally in the United States, they all should go. They all have to go. That's information we can use instead of, oh, well, they can come and they can get relocated and they can stay. The most recent reporting and the federal reporting on this, on how many illegal aliens show up for their immigration hearings, and this was back in 2015. That's the most recent group of statistics that we have here. 4 in 10, only 4 in 10, I should say 4 in 10 skip their immigration hearings. There's a 37-page study done, and it draws on statistics and interviews with unnamed immigration judges. It paints an image of a dysfunctional court system and argues that political appointees of former President Barack Obama made the situation worse. Those observations come from the judges themselves. Actual failure to appear rates nearly doubled or more than doubled what the courts told Congress. Originally, what they reported to Congress, the truth is much worse. They described a system plunged into turmoil by appointees at the Departments of Justice and Homeland Security who ignored statutes, precedent, and regulation, and imposed policies that dramatically increased, here's the kicker paragraph, backlogs and nearly halted adjudication. You think we need to drain the swamp here in Washington? Every single one of these individuals who threw a monkey wrench into the system should be out of work today. There is cause for removal of any of these individuals who just can't seem to do their jobs according to the rule of law. And apparently, according to this study, there are a lot of them burrowed into the bureaucracy. In 2015, ready for this? Almost 1 million immigrants ordered deported remained in the United States. 953,506 immigrants who have already been adjudicated as deportable aliens remained here, in many cases, years after receiving their final orders. Why? They don't show up for the appointment to leave. They just don't show up, and we don't do anything about it. There is no interior enforcement. That number represents a 58% increase from 2002. This report and the article on it is on lifezet.com. I want you to send this around to all of your friends because it paints a picture of a wholly dysfunctional, and I would say beyond dysfunctional, I would say corrupt system. This is a corrupt system to its core, with people burrowed into the bureaucracy who have a political agenda. Their agenda is to, I'll say it again, flood the zone. That the system is so overwhelmed, and people just throw up their hands and say, well, what are we going to do? We got to let all 11 million stay. I mean, we got most of them got to stay. 80% have to stay. The hardened criminals have to leave. So what does that do? What message are you saying to those people who have been struggling day in and day out to support their families, to see that their kids get a quality education in public schools because they can't afford to go to the private schools where the fancy people go, where, frankly, they don't have to worry about illegal immigrants? What do you say to those people? This is your duty to allow all these people to be here. It's your responsibility, American taxpayer, beleaguered middle class person. It's your responsibility to see to it that these families are unified, not in their home country, but in the United States. What do you say to them? Well, Donald Trump had a message for them. I'm here for you. How many times on the campaign trail did Donald Trump say, I'm here for the forgotten man and woman. I'm here for you. No one's been representing you. I'm here to represent you. So I would say that the DHS secretary ought to be very consistent about what he says about immigration enforcement at the border behind closed doors to Democrats and when he's doing an interview with Wolf Blitzer. That messaging better be consistent with what Donald Trump campaigned on, and it ought to be very clear. The rule of law applies. We've had plenty of DHS secretaries who didn't believe that. And we need a DHS secretary who represents the American interest in American security and the rule of law first and foremost.